Shalom, privyet, salut tout le monde, and welcome. All right, so we're gonna do something. I'm gonna start kind of like a new series, not a new series. Well, it's this gonna continue with answering pagans. But I was recently on a podcast, like a debate, and I just kind of jumped on. It was on Twitter, and my mind was blown at the rocks that were being thrown, the lies that were being told by this rising neo-pagan movement. And for me, it's absolute mental illness. But I think it's a curse from God, and that's how we're gonna kind of end it. We're gonna talk about the curses of Moses eventually, and so we're gonna debunk a lot of these neo-pagan claims. Okay, and this one is the in the Garden of Gethsemane, the Mark 14:48 to 52, and it's a rather disgusting um, accusation. It's really petty and evil, and I can't believe these guys actually are pushing this lie. So I want to teach you guys how you can defend against it, and so we're gonna go over a lot of things. This is just gonna be an introduction, okay, and then I have to I have to start making shorter videos. So instead of having one like 3 hour video, I'm just gonna break it up into sections. Okay. So this is what it's gonna be about. Okay. Now I just wanted to number one, I have to thank everybody who donates to me. You guys have no idea what you're doing for me. You're really saving my life. I don't live in Canada or North America anymore. I live in the Balkans. It's like the last probably free place in left in the Western world. I would say is probably the Balkans, and it's just because the European Union's not here, the British Commonwealth isn't here. So this is where I live. This is what I had to move to continue doing what I'm doing. In case something happens, okay, I just want everyone to know there is an Odysee account. I'm not really uploading there. I should be, but I'm not. Um, I also have an Instagram. I've never used Instagram. I didn't even know I could have Instagram. So there is an Instagram. Um, I have nothing on there. It's just there in case something happens. Twitter, I've got a Twitter account or X or whatever it's called now. And there is a Telegram group, okay? So there is a Telegram group. I don't. This QR code should work, but if not, this should be the link to find the Telegram group. You guys can join it. I haven't been super active there in the last couple months just because I've been dealing with stuff, but there is a group there. There is a community there. So if you guys want to join and give, send, go, all the stuff, all the links will be in the description. Thank you to everyone who's been donating. You guys saved my life. I owe you guys big time, and I'm not going to forget you. All right, so let's just go over the neo-pagan claim. I'm not even kidding. So the neo-pagan claim is Christ is an unemployed child trafficking drug dealer. Not kidding. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna turn that around on them. Not only are we gonna prove that that is insane, we're gonna look at how they came to this conclusion. We're going to turn the tables on them and go over how it's actually the pagans who are the pedophiles and child traffickers. Okay, a growing theory within certain neo-pagan and fringe academic circles, most notably championed by a guy named Ammon Hillman. Now you can Google the video. There's a YouTube video with this guy. I didn't even know this was a thing until like maybe a couple weeks ago when I jumped on this Twitter debate. And the thing is, when these guys are throwing rocks at you, I'll talk about actually them in a second. Actually, let me just finish reading here. Okay, so they contend that the arrest of Jesus in Mark 14:48-52 is not a religious event, but a criminal one involving human sex trafficking and drug dealing. This claim is built entirely on the subversive translation of two Greek words, actually three Greek words. Okay, so we're going to cover this. So we're going to look at these words that they're twisting. This word, leste, thief, okay, it's really an insurrectionist. It's a terrorist, a rebel, a pirate. They've translated it to mean it's a trafficker. It's someone that's trafficking humans, okay? And to a degree, they could be right. Like, Pirates generally abduct people. They can abduct people and ask for ransom. So in a certain context, maybe they're right, but that's not what the word means. Then we're going to look at this word young man, neaniskos, okay, this Greek word, and how they've destroyed the meaning of this word, all to make their fringe theory work. And then we're going to look at this word sinden, okay, and that is a linen cloth. It's actually not, it just means like linen, okay? It could be anything. So that's what we're going to cover. But more importantly, we're not just going to cover that. We're going to cover the Hellenistic world. Okay, we're going to do an overview on what life was like in ancient Greece and why we need to thank God that the ancient Greek world was destroyed, and thank God that the Europeans became Christians. Okay, understand that Europe needed Christianity far more than Christianity needed Europe. Yeah, and I'm going to stand by that, and we're going to prove that, and you're going to see what I mean as we go through the Greco-Roman sources. Okay. The other mental illness, I don't want to be mean, but for me it really is mental illness. I'm going to try to be nice, so I apologize if I'm being a little aggressive. I just can't take the lies anymore. This idea that these neo-pagans that are rising up, we need to fight the Jews and fight globalization. Yeah, I get that. I'm on board. I'm on board that we need to fight the globalization. I believe in nationalism. Let the nations be. And we need to preserve our culture. Okay? I mean, to a degree. Okay? To a degree. And I don't believe Christianity destroyed what you would say pagan culture. You know, like, again, I live in the Balkans, and 90% of everything we do are pagan rituals preserved by the Christian church. All the Christian church did was remove the degeneracy from the pagans, okay? That's it. They just cleaned up the traditions. The traditions are very much here. No one's stopping you from cutting down your oak tree and burning it and doing your pagan, your pre-Christian rituals. No one's stopping you. Okay? They just cleaned it up so you can't have sex with children anymore. All right, so the mental illness, the hypocrisy is there. These neo-Nazi pagan guys are going to rise up, scream we're nationalists, and then they're going to point you to the Greco-Roman world and go, see guys, look at how great Europe was. Look at the greatness of the Greco-Roman world. Look at what we accomplished. Okay, while they're doing that, they're then going to attack all the Eastern cultures. You dumb desert brown people, we don't care about Eastern culture. We don't care about any of that stuff. And then this guy goes to these guys are like praising their Europeanness, and they don't realize Europe, the name Europe itself comes from northern Israel. It comes from Phoenicia, Lebanon, the land of Canaan. That's the word Europe. It's northern Israel. That's Europe. The alphabet you're using is from Israel. It's from the land of Canaan. That's when you're writing A, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet. You're writing Phoenician, which is Phoenicia was Israel. Science, agriculture, mathematics, chronology, all this great stuff came from the East, came from Egypt, came from Mesopotamia, from Babylon. And the Greeks, in a sense, didn't really invent anything. The Romans, they improved what was already there. That's not to say what the Greeks and Romans did wasn't amazing. They took things to a new level. But to call yourself European and then attack the Eastern civilizations who gave the Greeks were adventurers and travelers and mercenaries and soldiers and fighters who went around the world and then brought what they saw back with them and then improved on them. No ancient Greek would agree with these neo-pagans about attacking the Eastern worlds. Okay? Plato learned in Egypt. Pythagoras learned in Egypt. Okay? Herodotus was a Greek writing not in the Greek world, in the Persian world. He came from the Persian Empire, Herodotus. Okay? So, anyways, so the hypocrisy here is not only do they attack the Eastern world, also their DNA, their genetics. Apparently now this haploid group. Now I'm not big into DNA, and the reason I'm not big into DNA is because I can't verify their science. Not like I can check the Bible, I can check the Greek words. I'm not a genetic scientist. I don't have access to a computer. All I can do is quote the work of other genetic scientists. I can't verify. I can't open up like I can do it with the Bible or dictionaries and read ancient Greek sources. I can't verify anything. So I am fully dependent on how these genetic scientists do their work, and that's the only reason I don't use it. But these guys use it, and what's crazy is they were going on about their haploid groups and all that stuff. And then when I started researching it, guess what? Their European haploid groups come from the Caucasian Mountains, that's the northern Middle East, down into the Levant and Syria and Turkey. So the majority of European blood comes from the Eastern world, okay? And also the Pontic steppe. Okay, so on all levels, everything these guys were talking about was just wrong, and you can't attack the Eastern world. Okay, that's just not correct. Now, the Greco-Romans, you can't be a nationalist and be for the Hellenistic world. The Hellenistic world was a imperial machine that tried to destroy all the other nations and Hellenize the world. So the Greeks said, our culture, okay, and the Persians didn't do this, okay? The Persians, the ancient Persians, never conquered a land and forced their customs and culture on those people. The ancient Persians welcomed you into their empire, and you got to keep your customs, your culture, absolutely everything. All the Persian leader wanted and said, hey, we're united. We're united in military, in trade. You can keep your customs and your culture. Keep your gods. It was the Persian. It was Cyrus the Great who told the Jews, go back, rebuild your temple. He didn't say your temple, no, you have to worship our gods. No. The Persians made a deal with you that you join our empire, you get to keep all your stuff, you get to use our roads, you get to use our postal system, our trade system. The only thing the king wanted was some tribute, some taxes, as well as military service. When there's a war, you send us X amount of men for the war. Okay? That's it. The Greeks and the Romans were completely different. They exterminated cultures, tribes, and people. And so when Alexander the Great, for instance, conquered Persia, the first thing he set out to do was to create a mixed-raced people. To take it's called the Susa weddings, and we're going to talk about this later. He ordered his 10,000 soldiers, his hoplites, to start having Greek-Persian children. He ordered his generals. He himself took Persian women to be his wives and had a Persian son. We're going to talk about him later. Okay? And so the Greeks went around bringing in pedophilia, okay? Pederacy, okay? And we got more sources on that. We're going to talk about that. So they were the worship of Dionysus and gymnasiums. And so pretty much what the Greeks were doing, they were bringing in the Hellenistic world, wiping out your world, encouraging the Greeks to mix with the people in those regions and to bring in homosexuality, pedophilia, drunkenness, the worship of Dionysus, bread and circus, art and theater. It's literally the ancient version of what's happening today. So right now, these pagan nationalists are crying that their homes are being invaded. Oy vey, look what the Jews are doing. We've got all these foreigners coming in. They're bringing all their foreign cultures in. They're pushing this LGBT stuff. Now they're pushing pedophilia. There's drugs everywhere, drunkenness everywhere. They're pushing this. porn, sexual degeneracy, earth worship, climate change. We can't take it anymore. Guys, why are you crying? This is what Hellenism was. Hellenism was all about homosexuality, pedophilia, forcing foreign cultures on other people, promoting theater, sports, entertainment. Okay. Now that's not to say, just like in the modern world, as much as we can hate the degeneracy that's coming out of this or the degeneracy of the Renaissance, but through this conflict, there is amazing stuff being born. The greatest advancements in world history happen during these transitional periods, whether it's the Renaissance that led to the Reformation, what we're dealing with right now. But my point is, to be a pagan nationalist and then to look back at what the Greeks were doing, going back to the Athenians, who literally had laws on how to have sex with little children, all the way to Alexander the Great, now forcing the Greek way of life on other people. Okay, and how can you be a nationalist and look at the Greeks and the Romans, who were imperialists, stamping out nations, destroying? How many pagan tribes were wiped out by the Romans, by the Greeks? You can look at the Dacians, completely gone, erased from history. The Lusitanians, wiped out, gone, erased. Half of the Germans, gone. Okay? And then the other Germans put up resistance. The Gauls, virtually gone, erased. And it wasn't until Christianity came that the Western Roman world fell, that now the nations were allowed to rise. Now all these people who had now become Christians adopted kings and nations. There would be no French nation. There would be no German nation. No Italians. No Spain or Portugal. No England or Scotland or Ireland or Wales. None of these places would exist today if it wasn't for the fall of the Roman Empire and the rise of Christianity. It was the Bible and Christianity that gave birth to these nations and people. The Romans were the ones coming into a land, exterminating a tribe of people, and then killing all the men in that region, and then bringing in legions from Syria, bringing in legions from North Africa, wherever, and then using the men from those legions and say, hey, you just conquered these people, we wiped out these European tribes, now you can have the women and the land. And so it was Rome that was stamping out nations. It was the Greeks that were doing the same, forcing race mixing, forcing their pederacy, their homosexuality, and race mixing and all that stuff, okay? And their drunkenness, their debauchery. No different than what's going on today. No different than what's going on today. These are empires, not nationalist nations. They didn't care, okay? They're going to attack the Bible, but look at the Apostle Paul, for an example. He's a Jew who held Roman citizenship. How does a Jew hold Roman citizenship? Because in ancient Rome, they do not care about nationality. They care about citizenship. You could be... Majority of Romans had never even seen the Rome's capital. They never saw Rome. Think about that. Okay? So, it's insane for pagans to be nationalists and then use Greece and Rome as the pinnacle of European civilization and go, we're nationalists for Europe. Well, don't look at the Greeks and the Romans, because they were anti-nationalists. They would have destroyed you and your people just as sure as the globalist war machine today is doing, okay? And they're pushing the same agenda. Earth worship, worship Mother Earth, worship the material world, worship men as gods, okay? Idolization, the way that they promote people today, be a celebrity, be a politician, you're like a god. Homosexuality, degeneracy, all that stuff. Guys, it's all from the Greco-Roman world, okay? And you cannot be a nationalist and use these European Greco-Roman world, these empires, as a figure of nationalism. Okay, if anything, and we're going to talk about this, how crazy is it that I actually have to look at the Jews? We're going to have to look now at this time. The Jews were the good guys. Going back to the Maccabean revolt, what was the Maccabean revolt about? It was about the Jews in Judea there was a civil war between the Jews who were pro-globalization and the Jews who were nationalist. And Judas Maccabee was on the nationalist side, fighting against the Jews who wanted globalization. And the Greeks were bringing in homosexuality, pedophilia, earth worship, Zeus worship, Dionysius worship, gymnasiums. Gymnasiums was where the men would wrestle naked, and that's where the pederacy would happen and was encouraged. So it was the Jews in the Maccabean revolt who were the nationalists who held up the Bible and said no to your Greek empire, no to you Hellenizing us, no to globalization. And it was the Maccabees who put up that fight, people using the Bible to justify why these are my lands and you are not welcome. Okay, so we're going to turn the tables now on these Greco-Roman promoting pagans who are nationalists. They attack the Bible, call themselves nationalists, while they promote ideologies that seek to destroy and replace nations. Okay, so, and who are these people? What are these people? I call them spiritual nomads. And what they are is they are people who really don't have a belief. Even when you attack these pagans or any of these people, these guys like, you know, the guys I'm talking about, all the myth visions people, the Gnostic informant types, the no more news type people, they don't have a foundation. They don't have a belief system, okay? And a spiritual nomad is a guy that just has no home. He jumps from camp to camp using the fact he has no beliefs of his own as a strategic advantage to attack you and your beliefs, okay? So you're trying to build something and they're just, you know, nomads running around burning everything down, okay? So the spiritual nomad, okay, sits behind his computer and just throws rocks at you, okay, one after another. Now you're trying to build a house. You're actually trying to build something. These are my beliefs. This is what I stand for. And I'm going to present an argument as to why this is true. And these guys don't have beliefs. They're going to sit there all day long throwing rocks at you. And every rock is going to be different, okay? This week they're going to say, you know, the Apostle Paul was a Flavian agent. He worked for the Roman Empire. And his job was to create a religion to pacify the Jews. Here, buy the book by this scholar. You can learn more about it. Christianity's fake. Paul was a Roman agent sent to pacify the Jews. Buy this book. Next week, you know what? The Apostle Paul actually wasn't a Flavian. We now have a new source from this scholar, and he says that Paul was actually a Jewish agent sent to invent a religion to subdue the pagans. Oh, here's his book. Go buy this book. Christianity's wrong. Here, buy this book. Boom. Next week. You know what, guys? Not only was Paul not a Flavian, not only was he not a Jewish agent, he never existed. We have a new book by this scholar, and guys, it never ends. And they almost never have these scholars on to debate each other. They just throw a new rock every week. They don't have beliefs. They're not going to tell you their beliefs, because now that we see where their house is, well, now it's our turn to throw stones back at them. But they're smart. They're smart in the short term. They don't state their beliefs. We have no idea what these people believe in. We don't know where they live. They know where we live. And they're throwing their rocks. And every week, their view changes. They have no view. Their view is this. Their goal is this, to destroy what you believe in, so that they can now fill that vacuum. Now they're selling books. And again, what makes them the biggest cowards is not only do they not have a house of their own, a view of their own, but the rocks they're throwing at you, the fires that they're setting, they're not theirs. They're holding up books from other scholars saying, this person said, I just threw the rock. The rock belonged to that guy. Do you see how smart they are? Because now what happens is they're going to push that view for that week, for that month, right? And at the end of the day, when you attack them and say, hey, you said that Paul was a Jewish agent, and you said that Paul doesn't exist. Oh, I didn't say that. The scholars said it from this book. If you have a problem, don't look at me. I'm just pushing their view. I just threw the rock. The rock belongs to that guy. Oh, I know I set these fires, but I just threw the match. The matches belong to them. The level of cowardness in these people, that not only do they not have a home, they don't have a house, they don't have a view, but the views they're throwing at you, the rocks that change every single week, they're not even their views, and they're just selling their books for them. Okay, so this is the spiritual nomad that hides behind the computer, that hides behind throwing rock after rock. You're trying to build something, because at the end of the day, guys, a country, a nation, if you hope to survive as a people, you are not going to be able to survive on doubt. The doubt that they're throwing, okay, is to destroy the house we're trying to build. And right now we are at a crossroads where will Western civilization survive or not? And I agree there's problems with Christianity. My whole channel is about not destroying Christianity. I'm looking at the house and I see structural problems. I'm like, you know what? This foundation wasn't done right. The roof needs to be changed. The windows are old. They are not going to work in the modern world. We have more evidence than ever using archaeologically. We have more evidence than ever before. We have more manuscripts than ever before. We just have way more proof now. We can now read ancient Egyptian, ancient cuneiform. We now have computers that can analyze things in record time. We've got Greek sources, Roman sources. Guys, we have never been in a better position than now. And it's crazy because we have more evidence now to prove the Bible is true. We've got evidence that the house of David existed. We've got the kings of Israel. We know these things happen and these things are real. How is it possible that we have more evidence than ever before to prove the Bible is true? And yet, I don't think in all of history, of all of Christian history, since Europe became Christian, there's ever been this many people who deny it. Do you know, it's not weird that we have more evidence to back up the claims and stories, and yet the amount of apostasy, it's mind-blowing. And a lot of it's to do with these spiritual nomads that, well, if I didn't get them with the Flavian theory, well, I'm going to get him with the Jewish spy. He was a Jewish agent. Well, I didn't get that one, didn't work. Let me throw the next stone. He never existed, and here's the proof. Not only did Paul never exist, Jesus never existed. And then what these guys do is, the sources also don't exist. There are no sources to prove Christianity. Why? Well, because this is first century stuff, and the earliest writings we have come from the next century. They're 100-year-old from the time of the event to... Yeah, but you guys are quoting pagan sources and Julius Caesar and Plato. Do you guys know how long the time gap is? Most of the pagan sources are the oldest, like they're 1,000 years old. They're 500 years old. They're copies of copies of copies of copies preserved by Christians. And it's funny because the Christians sanitized all the pagan stuff. Because when we go to the actual Greek and Latin, you're going to see just how evil these pagans were. The Christians were nice enough to, I don't know if there's a conspiracy to hide how evil the pagans were, but when you actually look at the Greek words and compare it to the translation, you're going to see just how evil the Greek writings are and how the translators had to hide just how disgusting these pagans were. Right? So that is the spiritual nomad. So I'm trying to not destroy, I'm trying to, renovate and repair the broken house, the house that's falling apart. These guys don't have a house. They sit hiding in the background, rock after rock after rock, and eventually one's going to hit you. And you're going to go, I don't want to be a Christian anymore. And a nation divided against itself cannot stand. And what makes these guys even more worse is when Christianity falls, like it did in Russia, like it did in Eastern Europe, like it did in where I live now. Used to be Yugoslavia, used to be Christian. When it falls in the West, these guys get what they want. These spiritual nomads and these pagans get what they want. There will be no free speech. When this empire comes, this globalization machine comes, and there's no nationalism or Christianity to stand against it, it's going to be like the Soviet Union. It's going to be like Yugoslavia. And let me tell you something. If you said one word against Stalin, not only are you done, your family's done. Here, where I live now, Tito was the dictator here. If you said one thing against Tito, gone. Family, gone. So when you get your wish and Christianity is destroyed, understand that these spiritual nomads will lose all their free speech. That if you say one thing against the regime that's coming, done. All right? So, and that's just it. They throw their rocks one after another, boom, boom, boom. And the problem is that once the rock is thrown, the lie that they're spewing, like the one we're going to go over here, Jesus was a unemployed child sex trafficking drug dealer. A lie will go halfway around the world while the truth is putting on its shoes. So the damage is done. Okay? And now we have to, it's the waiting effect. We now have to have a response, a rebuttal for this lie. And it's going to take time, though. It's going to be like the Peter Joseph effect. If you guys don't know Peter Joseph he made a documentary called Zeitgeist. And that's what's going to happen to all these guys, because they're doing the exact same thing as Peter Joseph and Zeitgeist. So he made a very powerful documentary, and he was a hit. He was a celebrity. Everybody loved him. The shock value, because the first 30 minutes of his documentary was trying to say Christianity was a myth stolen from the pagans before, which is a lot what these guys are doing. And then everyone believed it, myself included. This Zeitgeist video played a big role in converting me to Christianity. And just because eventually the truth caught up to the documentary, the shock value was over. The sources came out, everything was laid out, and the documentary was a total fraud. That first 30 minutes of the documentary were all lies based on some book that was based on other books that were already debunked. But the shock value was there. The lie went halfway around the world, but then the truth put on its shoes. And now Peter Joseph is a laughingstock. And that is how Peter Joseph is going to be remembered in history and in time, as a guy who lied to you, built his whole fame and fortune on lies. And I think that's the same thing that's going to happen to these guys. All right? Then we're going to go to the fall of the West and the curses of Moses, and to brace ourselves, because absolutely everything in Deuteronomy 28 like clockwork is happening to us. You can say, oh, the Bible's a lie, the Bible's, BS, it's all nonsense. It's like saying the protocols of the elders of Zion are a lie. You can say the protocols of the elders of Zion, oh, they're a lie, they're not real, but when everything in that book is happening, you can call it a lie all you want, but it doesn't change the fact that everything written in that book is happening. It's all coming true. And that's the same thing I would say about Deuteronomy 28. You can deny the Bible all you want, but any of you pagans, anybody, you pick up Deuteronomy 28 and you read it from start to finish. I think it's the longest, second or third longest chapter in the Bible. I think it's the longest, yeah. It's frightening. Now, the last part of it hasn't come true yet, but I think it's coming. And when that last part happens, 90% of it's already here. We're living in Deuteronomy 28. But when that last 10% happens, well, that's when it gets really scary. And I don't think we're far from that. All right? So we're going to talk about that too. And hopefully we can prevent it. Right? But as we fall away from God, and as these guys throw their stones, and you guys want to reject and humiliate and mock Christ and God, well, don't cry when God removes himself. When you're, all right, you don't want Christianity, you don't want God, you want atheism, you want the Soviet Union, you want communist Yugoslavia, where you can't say anything against the ruling people. Right now in Christian America, Christian Canada, you can judge your religion all you want. You can judge your leaders all you want. And now it's starting to change. Now as we fade away from Christianity, now they're arresting people. They have cyberbullying laws. So someone is calling the French president, what's his name, Macron, they're calling his wife Brigitte a man. Someone called her a man on Facebook or something. And he got arrested for cyberbullying. So now we're coming to a point now where free speech is gone. Under Christian rule, you can say what you want. Okay? Not Catholic rule. Well, no, in the Catholic era, with the Renaissance, the only thing you weren't allowed to do there was read the Bible in your own language. That was the death penalty in the Renaissance, was reading the Bible. You could read Homer, you can read Plato and read about Socrates. That wasn't against the law in the Renaissance. What was against the law was if you read the Bible to see is what the Pope doing correct? Is the Roman Church following the Bible? No, they weren't. That's why it was read in Latin. And if anyone tried to read the Bible in their own language, they were killed. Selling of indulgences, all that stuff. Okay. All right. So that's what's going to happen. We're at a crossroads right now where you need to make a decision. Okay? God or state? The pagans have nothing to stand on, guys. The pagans are completely lost. Okay? They're going to point at Greece and Rome and, oh, look at Europe. Well, you're looking at imperial war machines that wiped out nations who resisted them, that were anti-nationalist. Okay? They wiped out any nationalist tribe in Europe that raised their banners. Look at Britain. Look at Boudica. Okay? Or is it Boudicca? I don't know. Boudica, the woman general in Britain who made a resistance against the Romans and was killed for it. Look at Arminius. Arminius, the great German in the Teutoburg Forest, who destroyed, I don't even know how many legions, how many Romans he wiped out. General Varus, if you know the story of Arminius. And then there was the leader in Portugal, in Spain, the leader of the Lusitanians. Then you got Decebal or Decebalus in Dacia. Guys, any European tribe that tried to stand against the imperial war machine of Rome, the Greco-Roman world, that took Hellenistic Greece to the next level, that once they wiped out your people, they gave that to the legions, and the legionnaires came from all over the Roman Empire. They were one mixing pot. Do you guys not know what the Roman Empire was? What the Greco-Roman Empire was? Now, if you deny God and you don't want God and you don't want Jesus and you don't want your nation, slavery in Egypt is coming. And that's what Deuteronomy 28 is about. It's about making the choice. The promised land, the free land, America, Europe, was for a responsible people who God can leave in control of the land. The moment you become a degenerate, disobedient villain, Egypt falls upon you. The law falls upon you. God brings in an empire from afar to subdue you and enslave you because you rejected God. Make your choice, guys. You can choose God and be free, but with that freedom comes responsibility, law. Okay? Because that's what's coming. All right? We're at a crossroads right now, and the empire is coming. It's Rome 2.0. They're pushing their degeneracy, their bread and their circuits, their gladiator games. Go watch your UFC. Here's your homosexuality. We're bringing back pedophilia. Okay? There is a slight difference between Rome and Greece when it comes to sexual degeneracy. The Romans were a little better than the Greeks. Okay? So that's it, guys. That's what we're going to talk about. This is just an introduction to tell you everything that we are going to be talking about. But we are going to go through all of that, debunking the Gethsemane incident where the pagans are claiming that Christ was a homosexual, drug-dealing child trafficker, and that's what this story was about. And it's crazy how they came up with that. So anyways, guys, we're going to leave there. And that's the introduction. I'm going to try to just start making shorter videos. You know, one small point here, one small point there. This is going to be a small series. And that's it. We're going to go through all these points. And that's it. All right. So thank you guys for watching. And I hope you guys are well.